Hi, everybody. How you all doing
Hi.
today? Thank you for joining us today. We have Clearwater Chad, of course, and we also have our good friend Peggie Brott. How are you,
Hello.
Peggie? Can
Hi,
you hear
good.
us okay?
Yep, we're all good.
As usual, always one of us always has some type of technical difficulty, but we're only a minute or two late. So good to see you all. Today, we are going to do a deep dive into the IBLP, which is Institute of Basic Life Principles. Um, Many of you might be fairly familiar with it because of watching the Shiny Happy People documentary about the Duggars. But at the center of it was also the Bill Gothard Ministries. I call it cult, but the ministry, which basically they lived their life by those principles. So we can get into some history of it, and I just want to give Peggie an opportunity to just introduce yourself and just say who you are and what anything that you want to share with us. But we're so glad to have you here, Peggie.
Okay, great. Thank you. My name is Peggy, and currently I'm a researcher for the podcast called That's So Effed Up. And SPTV viewers might recognize the host's name, Ashley Richards, because she also does some really fun stuff with Apostate Alex. So on That's So Effed Up, I have been researching some stuff that has to do pretty similar to what we're going to talk about today, but I'm not going to give away too much of what I've been doing. um, and then in general, I just have an interest in this kind of stuff. I just like to find out how people tick and things like that.
Yeah, that's definitely where I'm at too. Especially with doing the deep dives into other cults, but this particular one really hits home for me because my organization that basically not really an organization, it was a church that I lived at, so I was sort of like in a Sea Org situation for almost 6 years. But the pastor, it's a she, which is interesting. I'll get into that later. But she followed Bill Gothard's teachings very closely, except for the her being a woman part. She had an excuse for that, but she really was impressed upon when she went to the Bill Gothard seminars in the 1970s. And I remember her describing it was a, a giant venue that had thousands and thousands of people. And when I did my little toolbox video yesterday, which didn't download till this morning, unfortunately, that's what happens in the holler with the internet. But um, there, there's 2 million over 2 million alumni of the IBLP and Bill Gothard seminars. And that's just the people that attended his seminars in the 70s. So I think it's really important because those people that attended the seminars, they then went into churches and families and workplaces and even public schools and basically peddled this really destructive these destructive concepts and these precepts that were supposedly biblical. So I think that a good place to start as far as delving into the type of Christianity, because we're not knocking all religions, we're not knocking Christianity in general, but we're talking about fundamentalism, which does have millions of members in the US and the world. And there's some slight similarities and some slight differences between evangelicals and fundamentals. And Peggy, if you can speak to that, because I know you've been doing some research on that as well.
Right. So, one of the differences that I want to point out is when you go to the IBLP website, they do call themselves evangelicals. Um, but according to like the definition of what a fundamentalist is, they're more fundamentalist. The fundamentalists, even just the definition from the dictionary says that they believe in a strict literal interpretation of the Bible and of Scripture in general, because there are fundamentalists in every religion. um, Evangelicals and I think Marilyn may have to tell me a little bit more about this. I know that evangelicals, they are born agains. They believe in the part of the Bible that says that everybody should be born again. Um, they will get rebaptized. Um, and then their faith is just so Christ centered. It's very New Testament. It's very just it's all Christ centered. Whereas when I was growing up, I was grew up Catholic. My mom is a very devout Catholic, and it it, it wasn't near as Christ centered. It was the Holy Trinity, but it wasn't like born again, washed in the blood of Christ kind of thing.
Right.
So I just want to make the difference because um fundamentalists are extreme. And I think that we use the terms interchangeably when evangelicals are non-denominational Christians. They're they may go to churches that sound like, they may be like Seventh Day Adventists or Pentecostal, but I feel like that it's just not as extreme as what a fundamentalist is.
Right. So I think you'd find that most fundamentalists would consider themselves evangelical, but evangelicals don't necessarily consider themselves fundamental.
Mhm.
So I think one of the differences that I see is that fundamentals tend to look at a passage, and they are very Old Testament heavy, although they do believe in all of the New Testament. You know, the things that most Christians believe in, the basic tenets of Jesus and born of a virgin and everything in the New Testament. But they are very Old Testament heavy, and they tend to take one scripture and completely take it out of context. So while they say they're literal, that's what they mean. They're literal. They take one scripture, like the one verse about the quiverful, and basically interprets that to mean you need to have as many children as you possibly can at all costs to yourself, which really is not biblical. So that's that's what they do as far as literal meanings for things. They pick and choose. They tend to be extreme, like you said. They will take days that God you know um, created the earth as literal 6 days. Then you've got the flat earthers and stuff. I would consider them all extreme fundamentals. Well, there's a lot of different flavors in that. It's not like Scientology where everything is like source and it's just drilled into you a certain way. It's very much open to going off on left field, and that's where you've got a lot of extreme cults. But and I don't want to take up too much time, so I've got another thing kind of leading into that, but that's pretty much how I personally view evangelicals. But the church that I grew up in, I would consider evangelical. I'm not saying it was great. It could be very abusive. It was very extreme at times, but it did have more of a focus on grace and Jesus and all that. Although there was a lot of fear-based tactics and fear-based things, but it didn't have one charismatic leader, and it didn't have a lot of the extreme patriarchal and oppressive and basically illegal practices. Some of it we can get into later. Were absolutely abusive.
Mhm.
Yeah. So anything you want to start with as far as what the IBLP, their foundational beliefs were?
So I think probably at the top of that is that they have a patriarchal theology. And everything is centered around the men, the man of the house, the head of the house, the head of the church, which is why Marilyn said that it's interesting that they have a female pastor, because there's a belief that women shouldn't be teaching men, that there's nothing that men can learn from women. So the men get all of their information from the Bible, and then it's their job as either the husband or the head of the church to then interpret that and teach the women and the children, because they don't want women or children, one, getting their own ideas or interpreting it their own way. And then another thing is that they just want that control, like, this is my word, this is law, so if they're supposedly taking their words straight from the Bible, then the women, can't dispute, well, like, oh yeah, I read that in the Bible too, okay, I understand what you're saying. And I feel like, I don't know, with Marilyn and her husband, I don't know how much, like, was Duncan, like, was he like traditional head of household, because he seems just like just a down to earth guy that I can't picture him being like, this is my final word,
No, and that's one of the things that just made it so hard to be in that environment, because he was brought up Methodist, but very mainstream, and his parents were very conservative. Like, they didn't drink or smoke or do anything crazy. But I mean, he didn't grow up like really strict like me, where you couldn't listen to rock music. I mean, he could go to dances, and his mom was an artist and kind of like very progressive for a conservative type, person. But he grew up learning to, respect women, and that's maybe why he embraced the fact that the pastor was a woman, and the way she would just explain it away. And she did tell me I had to submit to Duncan, but I don't know, that didn't really happen. A lot of things didn't happen that she wanted to happen. And he didn't want to be that way, he really didn't. So I lucked out there. But she said the reason why God called her, even though she was a woman, that she was a broken, empty vessel. She was imperfect. And that because, get this, there were no other men qualified to fill this place of ministry that God had called her to. That, oh, okay, I guess so. And there was Deborah in the Bible. There were a few women in the Bible that were the exception to the rule. So she, of course, it's always the exception to the rule. But she would kind of pretend that she would be grooming a man in the church, but then she would decide he would do a sermon on something like God's love, and she didn't like that. So she would just be like, no, she would beat them down, and she did it to Duncan. She did it to a lot of people. So the thing about the seminars and the precepts and everything, IBLP is you can belong to it. You can pay to have your children pay for the ATI, the homeschooling curriculum. You can do that go to the conventions every year, like the Duggars. You saw the Duggars with all their little kids dressed exactly alike, and they would get up and speak and all that. We looked pretty much like everyone else, except we did have to make sure we were modest at all times. But I didn't have to wear, we could wear bathing suits as long as we had shorts and a t-shirt. We didn't have to wear long dresses. But she really took the basic principles of the umbrella of authority, and we'll get into all that. But yes, I mean, it was very patriarchal in the way that the authority was it didn't matter. Like, I'll give you one quick example. Her son was the vice president of the board, and he was the most hot-headed, angry, bitter person that I've ever met, honestly. Well, there's a couple exceptions, but especially lately. But he was very, very bitter and angry. And she would explain it away. She'd say, well, he's the vice president. You have to listen to him. You have to do what he says. And it's like, but he's an asshole. He's a jerk, And he was doing stuff that if we had done some of those things, we would have been gone a long time ago. So you could see that it was like, it didn't matter as long as it was the position. You could get beaten by your husband. You could get, in abused. It didn't matter because God put them in that position, and that was the end of it.
And that's exactly what they said about Bill Gothard. He, if you've watched the documentary, you saw how much he got away with for decades. And that was the exact thing that they said about him. Well, he's the one that God put in that position. And it took decades for them to, I think from what I understand, the only reason why they finally removed him, or, as their actual website says, he stepped down, was because there started to be lawsuits against him. And that's when, once it becomes like in public domain, then they're like, oh, well, he's still a good guy and we still really like him and we don't believe that he did any of this stuff, but he's just going to go ahead and step down now. We just think it's time, and on their website, it does also have a little thing that says, just in case anybody, comes in, they're probably watching it, the documentary, and they want to know a little bit more. Oh, well, Bill Gothard isn't a part of us anymore. Like, don't worry, we're okay now. We're safe. But yeah, as far as Gothard goes, that was their excuse the whole time. Well, God put him here, and there's a purpose and there's a reason, because everything's always centered around God's plan for us, right?
Right.
And maybe Gothard had to go through some trials and tribulations to become the man he is. Or, there's always an excuse
Yep.
as to why these certain people stay in power.
Right. While you were talking, I was thinking about one of the principles is suffering. So if you suffer under bad authority, then that's your cross to bear. And I was wondering, Chad, you got on your typewriter,
Yep.
and you have, right. I don't know if you want to read the whole thing or if you just want to go over the principles, but I think it would be good just to do, just to at least list the 7 principles, so that gives us kind of a springboard. Okay,
yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Okay. So IBLP information off their own website. Their core beliefs. First one is design, to accept God's purpose for your life. Next one's authority, understanding how to honor the role God has given parents, church leaders, governments, and learning how to respond when those above me violate God's will. Next one, responsibility, realizing that I will one day have to answer to God for every one of my thoughts, words, and actions. Suffering, seeing how reaction to offenses produce fuel, not resolution for ongoing detriment, and discovering transforms bitterness into genuine forgiveness. Next one, ownership, acknowledging that everything I am and have comes from the Lord, and learning how to overcome the anger that commonly results when others tamper with my possessions. Next one, freedom, discovering how major entanglements in sin begin with little compromises, choices, and thought patterns, and learning how to transform the ground of my soul from Satan's deadly dictates to Christ's life and region. Last one, success, how to fulfill our God-given purpose, understanding that biblical success is defined by God's ultimate plan, not my temporal attainments, and learning that reaching it requires God's word conquering me from inside out.
And that's right from their website.
Yeah. That's pretty extreme, isn't it?
It says it all, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And like you said, guys, this was whitewash. This was not, they make it a little, and this is the calm version of it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I remember one of his teachings, his sermons that was transposed into, a article form was about the soul. So again, we're talking about extreme fundamentals. So I'm not saying that anyone that believes in this generally is wrong. I'm saying the extreme that they take it to. So Jesus came to save your soul, save you from your sins. And the way Gothard defined it was your soul is your mind, your will, and your emotions, right? So you're supposed to surrender. If I heard, oh my God, if I had $1 for every time I heard the phrase surrender to God, right? It was like one of those thought stopping cliches, like anything. It was just like surrender to God. It's like I can't pay my bills because I'm giving all the money to the church. Well, just surrender it to God and have faith. Okay. But your mind, your will, and emotions were supposed to be surrendered to God. Now, what does that tell you? Your mind, don't think, right? Let
Mhm.
God or the cult leader do your thinking for you. Your will, anything that you put for, set to do, like anything you want to do, whether it's who you marry, whether it's your job you have, if you go on vacation, how many kids to have, everything was filtered through God slash the cult, because remember, who's your authority? It's God, but it's also you're under a whole chain. So
Mhm.
you're under your husband, your pastor, your elders and everything like
Mhm.
that. And then God. And you can't really reach that. So I always had a hard time wondering what's the will of God. Well, Marlene knew. She told me. And then emotions too. You basically aren't allowed to have emotions. You're allowed to have joy. And if all you got to do is watch an episode of 19 million and counting, and
Mhm.
you see the toxic positivity and the zombonic smiles on their faces. It's just sad.
Mhm. And from what I understand, that's something that girls are actually taught how to do. They're taught to keep their voices even and to walk a certain way, have their face a certain way. And um, what they said on the documentary about, okay, my I'm blanking. What's the wife Duggar's name?
Michelle.
Michelle. Oh man, for some reason I was thinking
Michelle,
Kim.
she talks like this. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
There's a former high school friend who says, "Oh no, that's not how she was. That's something she's learned over time." But it like I said, from what I understand, that's something that's actually taught, you know.
Not to make you nervous or anything.
I see. I
I
actually I
actually
just saw that pop up.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I got excited.
I know. I love
You were on a
Ashley.
roll.
She's great. People, I have insomnia, so Ashley's in Europe right now, so she's actually enjoying my insomnia because it means that she can get some work done and when it's daytime for her. We're talking when it's 3 o'clock in the morning for me.
I
Um,
get it.
but anyways, it's sad to think that their main goal is to completely wipe females' personalities out of them.
Yeah, absolutely. I can relate to that because I have always been inside my natural personality is very outgoing and vivacious. And I mean, because I had a very tragic, start to life with,
Mhm.
losing my mom and 3 siblings in a house fire, I really also had to almost take care of myself in a way because nobody had custody of me until I ended up in this foster home that was Pentecostal, where, I was one of 10. So I had that kind of survivor um, fire inside of me. I had that inside of me. And to just have it constantly eroded away, constantly stuffed down, constantly beaten down, it was almost to the point where I just gave up. And I never totally gave up because it was in there. And then, as you know my story, just the fact when I had children and they started to the cult started to bear down on my children, that little thing inside of me, that mother bear or that fire survivor thing, rose up, and that was the beginning of us getting out of there. But yeah, it was that just constant. You thought that you were doing the right thing. You thought you were in God's will. You thought that they always had these platitudes and things. It was like a gentle, quiet spirit is precious before the Lord. Who doesn't want to be precious before the Lord, right? But I could never quite do it. And that's why I always thought I'm going to miss the rapture. I'm going to hell. I'm going through the tribulation. If I don't take the mark of the beast, I'm going to get curtains and I'm going to end up being martyred. And then who knows, I probably end up in purgatory and not even end up in heaven. So that was always a struggle. It was just a constant struggle, just, in my head and in my spirit it was just, I just, there's millions of people that have gone through this. I believe because of so many people have been subjected to this extreme way of life.
Right. It reminds me of having like the angel and the devil on your shoulders.
Yeah.
And when you are in these extreme type of religion, the devil is a real actual living being. Hell is a real actual place that you will go and burn forever or whatever. And when you're letting that little devil win, I can only imagine that your brain is just out of control with worry, stress, anxiety.
Totally.
I can't imagine just living on that edge all of the time. And also, you can't ever be honest with anybody. If you were to go up to your foster mom or your pastor or something, and you'd be like, hey, I'm having these really bad thoughts and I don't know what to do with it, I'm sure that there would be some type of repercussions for it.
Oh, completely. It would be the devil's lying to you. Let me lay hands on you. And you would basically have all outside, if you have any outside influences, taken away until you can be dealt with and reprogrammed. So you had to constantly just empty your mind and try to almost disassociate yourself from yourself, because everyone has that inside of them, whether it's your conscience or whether it's just your own sense of being wanting to come out and be themselves, and it's so hard when you're raised in it. You don't trust yourself. You become your biggest prison warden. You become your worst enemy. You know what I'm saying? Like you almost are doing, the opposite of positive self-talk. It's like a negative self-talk. You're almost forced to cannibalize your own sense of being. It's insane. And people have gone insane. My housemates in the cult, literally 2 of them were hospitalized and 3 others just completely lost it. And I always joke that the fact that I was allowed to crochet while we listened to all these terrible tapes at night kind of gave me maybe enough dopamine or something to keep me a little bit sane. Plus,
it's like you had one foot out. You have that one foot grounding you a little bit.
Yeah, and if Marilyn had only known, she would have taken it away from me, because everything was an idol. And that's another thing that she got from the Bill Gothard teachings, was that anything that you wanted for yourself, it was an idol. And that's where we got the whole thing of like hiding your idols under the tent of Achan and all the Old Testament stuff. It was just always a way to make you feel guilty, make you feel ashamed, and bring you back under the control if you were out of line. Yeah, so I was just looking at your notes, because you had a couple other things besides the patriarchy that we're kind of just free-forming it here. Yeah.
Well, actually, if you I was thinking that this would be a good segue into just a little bit on the fear-centered part of what's going on.
Yes.
Like I said, where hell is an actual place, and you're just always worried that, and like you said, you are always thinking that when the rapture comes, you're not going to get to go to heaven because of these little things. But then in Christianity as a whole, Jesus died to, cleanse everyone of their sins, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
then, you have like the Catholics who go to confession, and then they say, I did something bad this week. And the priest is like, okay, go do your Hail Marys. And I know there's other faiths like LDS or something like that, where they have the board of elders, and then you go talk to your elders about what you did wrong or something.
Yep.
But I feel like with these fundamentalists, it's another way to keep everybody down, keep their heads down, stop them from looking around, seeing what else is going on in the world. Because if you're always scared, just all the time, you're not going to question anything. If you're always told,
Right.
like if you're always told the real world or the outside world is just a bunch of sinners, and all of them are going to hell, if that's pounded into your brain throughout your entire childhood, which is when it starts, then that's going to create also those robot zombies, just they're not going to question anything because they're so terrified of going to hell.
Right. And that's what's so insidious about that umbrella of authority, because it was also called the umbrella of protection. So if you strayed outside at all, even in your thoughts, if you weren't constantly, having your eyes on, God and what you were supposed to be doing, if you watch the Duggars, they were always like busy little bees, and I didn't know who was who, Ginger, whatever, because they were all like the same. They were like a unit, right? They weren't individuals. So if you tried to assert any kind of individuality or something, that brought you out of the umbrella of protection. And can you imagine being a young child knowing words like God's gonna judge you and condemn you, and the devil will swallow you up, and terrible things will happen to you, and if you get sick, kind of like the Scientology pulled it in thing. So if things happen to you, if you're deemed as rebellious and something bad happens to you, that's because of your sin and you did it to yourself, and it's because of the devil. If it's someone that the cult leader deems righteous, that's the whole suffering thing, like God's refining me like silver. You get that look on their faces, like that martyr thing of, well, yeah, my husband might be beating me, but it's okay because God is just testing me. It's like, hello, life doesn't have to be that hard, but because you're programmed to live in fear, like you said, from a young age, in the 70s and 80s, and they still exist. They had these things, I think I mentioned this to you, Peggy, called chick tracks, and those are pretty mainstream, but they're pretty extreme. I mean, they instilled the fear of God in me, as they say, about hell and substances and anything rock music. And we can get into that too, because that's another thing that was like banned, TV, everything. And it was kind of the straight and narrow thing, but it was used to evangelize, and it's very anti other religions. It's very racist, and they were also against the LGBT community as well. So these are the things that you're just literally immersed in and constantly having surround you. It is really hard to break out of all these mentalities, and the fear being the number one thing that keeps you in.
Right, right. I can't imagine. It's like any type of abusive relationship too. When we think about domestic abuse victims, and a common thing that you hear about them is, well, why didn't they get out? Why didn't they leave sooner? And it's just fear based. It's their people are so terrified to leave their situation because they've been programmed to think that it's going to be worse. And so you're thinking, if it's going to be worse when I get out, then, I guess this is my
Right.
my cross to bear. Mhm.
Right. I think it got to the point with me where, like, I kind of always knew I wasn't measuring up. And when it came to the oppression that my children were suffering, and we were being threatened that my kids, I can't even say on YouTube some of the stuff that they said would happen to my kids, and it hasn't, but just the fear.
Mhm.
It got to the point where, okay, am I afraid of going to hell? Well, this is hell. This feels like hell. It is hell. And I'm like, you know what? At that point, I was 36. I'm like, well, I probably have a lot of years left. I'm going to make it a nice life for my kids. And if we all end up in hell, oh, well,
Mhm.
because it
Mhm.
just felt like this, anything has got to be better than this.
Right.
So it
Right.
was kind of like weighing my options, but I was scared. I couldn't even leave my house. I couldn't go outside. I'd run to my car if I had to go somewhere because I was so afraid that they would drive by and put curses on me, which sounds funny now, but it was very real for many years.
Mhm. Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
I
I can
believe it.
imagine.
Oh, a short
Mhm.
umbrella. Yeah.
Oh.
Yep.
Wow.
So, if there's any other main points you wanted to touch on, and then we can open it up to the chat because I don't want to
Right, for sure.
neglect
I
people.
actually just wanted to touch briefly on something that's quite disturbing to me, which is the purity culture. One of
Good
the
point.
biggest aspects of I find the most disturbing is how men have control over girls' sexuality. And so I know some of these fundamentalist groups, the the young girls in the group are supposed to look to all of the men as, like, father figures or authority figures. And so you will have um men watching out for your daughters while they're out and about, and then going and telling you, oh, well, once she got to school, she changed her clothes, or she, rolled her skirt up a couple inches, or I saw her holding hands with a boy, and it's these men's obsession with this young girl's sexuality that's just so disturbing to me. And they just want the control over it, and then, like you said, they'll tell you who you have to marry, and they don't even get to date. They don't get to do those teenage years where you're dating, you're discovering who you are, you're discovering your own sexuality. You have to do what they call courting, which is always supervised. And again, that's another thing that we saw very blatantly on the Duggars. They did not hide that at all. When the girls were going on dates and somebody had to be there with them, they weren't allowed to hold hands. And then one of the biggest things that we saw was when some of the girls got married, their first kiss wasn't even until that wedding kiss. you
Wow.
know so once you get married, you don't understand yourself, your body, your own sexuality. You don't have any clue who you are. And we've heard from other people, when you're watching Shiny Happy People, other people were saying, even on my first night of marriage, I was, R-worded, and they don't understand. They don't
Right.
they don't know what it's about. Their moms haven't taught them. They're homeschooled. There's no health class. There's nothing. I mean, my kids always tease about how they've had to take health class like 3 or 4 times throughout middle school or high school. But these kids don't even get any type of, they don't even understand why their bodies are changing, or, what's happening. Why am I growing these? Why do I have hair all over? No one teaches that, any of that. So they go into adulthood just blind, not
Mhm.
understanding. I mean, I would hope that they would understand how babies are made. I don't know. Like I would hope at the very least their mom says, this is how you make a baby. Because it, even if you do end up having sex before marriage and you have no idea how a baby's made, that can't be good.
Oh, there's many that don't. I had a friend that would avoid cornfields because she thought that's how she could get pregnant if she fell on a cornstalk. I'm sorry.
Oh no.
Yeah. But
Oh,
yeah,
Oh,
I mean, I have so many thoughts about that, but um yeah, there's girls that don't even know what's happening to them if they are attacked or if they are worded at a young age, you
mm,
know. They haven't been able to process or even find the words to say, hey, I was attacked. And just like with the Duggars, a lot of it is covered up. And if you have these older men, and it happens even in Scientology, I'm hearing there's like 14-year-olds that were being made to marry 30, 40-year-olds, which is horrible. Um, yeah, the church that I grew up in was not as much like that. Like I said, it was more evangelical. That it was not perfect, had a lot of issues. But the the cult that I joined when I was 20, I had between the age of 16 and 20, I had run away from the foster home when I was or my adopted home when I was 16. From 16 to 20, I just sowed my oats. I had a blast. I had a lot of different boyfriends. I went to movies. I did everything I could possibly do. Completely sowed my oats. I took off to Cape Cod and had fun there for a couple of years. I mean, I just went wild, right? So when I came back, I was like, I'm definitely going to hell now. And by then, my mother had joined this, super serious the church, and that's where I met Duncan, because we really genuinely wanted to find purpose in life. We wanted to be good servants of the Lord, and have a righteous lifestyle, right? So we end up in this cult and meet there, and it was 5 years before, 5.5 years of me living there before we got married. I think we might have held hands once. I was 26 when we got married. He was 38. And neither of us were, I don't, can you say virgin? Yeah. Neither of us were.
yeah.
But we were celibate for 6 years, almost 6 years. And because of the fear of, you know, we they and Marlene definitely believed in the courtship thing, because we didn't even date. I mean, we snuck a kiss like when nobody was looking, and I felt so guilty about it. It was just crazy. But I mean, I have really lucked out. Here we are. We just celebrated our 26th anniversary, but it was insane because we barely even held hands and kissed, and all of a sudden you're married, and then go
Mhm.
have babies, and it's like I already knew. Because like I said, I had already kind of gone out. But can you imagine someone who didn't? I mean, oh my God. And even then it was just so weird. It was like, we had 3 kids in like 3.5 years. And then I was like, okay, that's enough. Um, as far as the quiverful goes, Marlene did believe in that, but it was selective because we weren't worthy to have a bunch of kids. And I was glad, because I didn't want to have too many kids. I was so happy to be a mother. So I wanted to be able to really give my kids attention, because
Mhm.
I had been in such a huge family, my adopted family. So, yeah, I got special permission to stop having kids because she didn't want a bunch of rebellious Marilyns running around, I guess. So,
Yeah.
so
I can only imagine your kids growing up like that, especially your daughter has such like a self-awareness. I can't imagine Marlene, trying to boss her around as she's
oh,
getting into like
she hated
teenager.
yeah. At 7 years old, and it's not even funny because I've apologized to her a billion times
I
about this, but
know.
she cast demons at her. She said this girl's out of control. No, she was a sweetheart. She just, if she didn't like something, she told her. She just wasn't having it, and I refused. Do I have my terrible, super awful book? Oh, yeah, I do. I refused to do like the blanket training and all that stuff,
Mm,
you know. But
mm.
I did do things I regret now, but yeah,
Mhm.
they're definitely self-aware and independent thinkers, and I'm really grateful for that. And we're
Mhm.
close too. So
Yeah, that's fantastic. I know you've said before raising your kids in this way. I know it's not the healthiest thing, but you all seem like such a close-knit family now. And so we're a military family. We move around a lot. We haven't lived anywhere near family in 20 years. Um, well, I would say, yeah. And we move from state to state. We move all over. So I have 3 kids. My daughter is the oldest, and then I have 2 boys. And they were always each other's best friends growing up because they don't have a choice. That's who they have, each other.
right.
They have
Yeah.
us. So the 5 of us are very close knit, but that also comes in a way from that sort of trauma bonding, because every single time you have to pick up, move, leave your life, go to a new place, start over. And we've done that so many times. Um, we, we have that bond because we're the ones that experienced that.
Right. Yeah.
Most people, other military families can kind of understand it, but no one in our family really understands it. We don't have a lot of other people in our lives that understand what it's like to have to pick up and move like every 2 years. As
Yeah.
soon as the kids get settled and make a bunch of friends, we move, you know.
Right.
So, and that's what it seems like with your family. It's like you guys have been through some serious stuff, but it's either going to break your family apart or it is going to bring you closer.
Yeah.
And so I think that's great about your family.
Yeah, that's a really good point that you can definitely relate to is having somebody who has been, in the trenches, to use like a military thing. It's like,
Mhm.
yeah, it would be really hard for me to explain things, like even when I started to branch out, and we live in a very rural area, but there's a city about 20 minutes away. I started to connect with some of my friends from high school, and they're like, "Where have you been for 25 years?" And I'm like, well, it's hard to explain, but yeah, it was almost like a weird, like, I felt like there was like a stigma because I was gone for so long, and there are people that really have been very patient and understanding with me, but finding this SPTV community has been great. And way before it was SPTV, watching the aftermath and realizing I'm not alone. This isn't unique to my cult. This isn't just 40 crazy people in the wilderness of Vermont. This is like epidemic.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's like Marlene, even though she was like the called and chosen one, she read the same damn handbook as you know all of them, Jim Jones and David
Yep.
Miscavige and LRH and all the crazies.
Mhm.
She was a full-blown narcissist. So there's so many of us that have experiences with those type of abusive even relationships. So I think it's a good thing that we're talking about these other types of cults, because there's probably something that everybody can glean from doing a deep dive into this type of thing, whether you were in a fundamental religion or a cult or not. So
Mhm. Mhm. Right, right.
Yep.
Yeah. And I appreciate having you to um talk to about it, because I'm just like I said, I just want to learn so much more about this stuff. I want to learn so much more about coercive control, high control situations. So as I'm studying to be a social worker, I'm finding out that there's very few people in the social work therapy type field that understand this stuff. So when people are getting out of these really high control situations and they're trying to go to therapy, if your therapist doesn't understand, they've never researched, they don't know what it's like for you, then you're not going to get the proper type of therapy that you need. And that could either put you back into a tailspin, or it could just make you completely give up on, like, oh, I am never doing therapy. This is
right,
this is
yeah,
stupid. Nobody
yeah,
understands me. So I just want to work to make sure that I understand like a wide variety of situations, not saying I'm going to become an expert at this by any means, but I definitely want to understand people as a whole, so that when these situations do come at me, I can't just be like, gee, I have no clue, like Google it. I don't know,
Right. Definitely. That's awesome because first of all, being a social worker is not easy at all, and I commend you for that. I mean, that's amazing that you're moving forward with doing this, and also wanting to have all the tools that you need, and also to look at the person as like a whole person instead of just, okay, where where you're going to get your next meal from, where's the roof over your head. I think that's amazing that you're approaching it from a very delicate standpoint of wanting to understand the whole person. So having been a foster kid myself, I really can appreciate that very much.
Right.
So can we? We're coming up on the hour mark. Can we go into some of the comments?
That'd be great.
So, all righty. All right. We've got, and I apologize if some of these are from about an hour ago. So I hope you're still here with us. No Talk Tony. I grew up Jehovah's Witness, but realized early in my life that it wasn't for me. Unfortunately, it wasn't until I was 26 before I was able to fade.
I can imagine. Now, I know with Jehovah's Witnesses, it's another closed religion. It's another religion where when you leave, that you are, SP, you're excommunicated, and families, churches can't talk to you anymore. And then I believe that with Jehovah's Witnesses, you actually have to get like permission to become to leave the church. You have to, from like Watchtower or whatever, correct me if I'm wrong, but you have to get that permission to no longer be a part of the church. Like you get your declaration letter or whatever.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the permission thing. I know they do put pressure on families to disconnect, or well, what do they call it? Disfellowship, and shun, which is somewhat what the Amish do as well, because you're either in or you're out, and the difference between, well, I'll say the similarity of Jehovah's Witness and what we were talking about is the fear-based religion, where very, very similar, the Armageddon and the hell and all that. Well, they don't believe in hell, I guess.
Right.
I'm not sure exactly. They're very much fundamental quote. They'll tell you they're Christian, but they're they don't believe in the Trinity, which kind of is something is just like, okay, Jehovah's Witnesses, we were always taught that they weren't the true church, that they were a cult. So I didn't really even know what a cult was, because if I did know what a cult was, I might not have joined one. But I just knew that they didn't have the truth, But yeah, there's a lot of abuses and a lot of I'm sure that No Talk Tony had to have a lot of kind of deprogramming, to use, I can't think of a better word at the moment, but yeah, it's a process. And being 26 when you left, that's tough.
I'm glad you got to get out. No Talk Tony. That's good.
Yeah.
Yep. Alrighty. Okay, I can't pronounce this, but I think she likes to be called Sophia. Sophia, yeah. The selective reading is their strong suit. Jesus was pretty clear about the Old Testament not being all right. Right. There's the Old Testament and the New Testament. Just quickly, Jesus coming to fulfill the law. The law was another word for the Old Testament, right? So him coming to give the ultimate sacrifice, to die for our sins, that fulfilled the law and the prophets. But they still did use, I mean, even evangelicals do use a lot of scripture from the Old Testament, but they balance it more with with the new.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Relax drama, Team Mike. I know this isn't the focus of the video, but Leah has just shared on her Substack that she is suing Church of Scientology,
Oh,
Davey
wow.
Miscavige. Okay.
Wow, did not know
Good for
that.
her. Good for
That's
her.
great.
Awesome.
Wow. I'm
Just
sure Levin Smith will make a video about that later,
Keeping it
right?
on. He probably, he probably.
He's already getting ready.
Sorry. He probably already went live. Who knows? We've been in
That's cool. That's
Stream
good.
Yard
That's a good
land.
update.
Okay. Hans Christian Schwartz.
Nice.
Oh, there we go.
Nice.
Thank you for letting us
confirmed.
know. Yeah, thank you for letting us know. Our buddy Joel McCoyne. I was told by a large church leader that we should not worry about the things of man, like money, but in the next breath, he asked for money. Exactly. I question any group that says, believe us and suffer. Yeah. That was always something I struggled with too.
Like, I don't know where my next meal's going to come from, but
Right.
here's a
Right.
10th of my income.
Yeah, meanwhile, I'm sure the leader of the group has a nice fancy car and a nice big home.
Yeah. There's a, I can't remember if it was in Matthew. So this is New Testament, right? So there's things in the New Testament that can definitely be twisted and are twisted all the time. It says, give no thought for today or for tomorrow, that it has its own worries for itself, which is good, right? But then it says, consider the sparrow. It doesn't toil, but yet God feeds them and takes care of them. So it's like this quote, have faith thing where don't give any thought for yourself, right? You don't know where your next meal is coming, but you have faith. And that doesn't always work out, So that's why the cognitive dissonance and just the constant just emptying your mind and not being able to think for yourself. I mean, one thing my adopted dad said for me, he didn't really drink all that flavory thing going on that my mother was into, because he just kind of would like, yeah, yes, dear. But he was a strong man, and he would kind of like just kind of say stuff to us like to kind of undermine my mother. Sometimes he'd be like, the Lord helps those who help themselves, because he was like a hard worker. So I always remembered that. Like,
Nice.
God helps those who help themselves. Joe DeCeppo. Hey, Joe. So many groups push misogynistic ideas and, quote, submissiveness.
Yep. I can't believe they still practice that to this day, though.
I know. I know. That's crazy to me, that we're still submitting to our husbands, submitting to the church, submitting to the leader of the church. Yep. And it's literal too. It's not, it is literal submitting, in whatever way your husband wants you to.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And then if you are, we can't say the word, but if something happens to you and it's your fault, you have to go to your husband to apologize for what he did. Yeah. It's just so crazy.
For whatever you did to cause him to do.
Yep.
Well, you're supposed to have a gentle, quiet spirit, and you're supposed to go and appeal to your husband in a righteous way. So you have to be like, hey, that didn't really feel good to me. I didn't like that. Or I feel this, but you can't at the same time, you've been taught to not care about what's done to you. So a lot of women just clam up. They don't say anything, and they just take it.
Right. Well, we have the whole fight, flight, fear. Well, there's also the fawning, right? So I'm assuming it's going to be more typical for women in fundamental situations to fawn. Because if you don't, there is so much physical abuse in this culture that it's going to get worse. So if you don't go along with what he says, what the next step is probably going to be.
Right.
I was reading stories too about abuse having to the daughters of the fathers, which is disgusting. And same deal, like they had to go to their father and apologize and stuff, which is ridiculous.
No, that hurts my heart.
Yeah.
That hurts my heart to think of these people in these situations.
Absolutely. The joyfully available thing got me almost puking. Oh, be joyfully available got me almost puking. They teach their daughters that. Yeah.
Mhm.
It's just always be, there's something in the Bible about like readiness, just always being ready to serve the Lord, and that whole plastic smile thing and joyful available. Yeah. That's just
You know,
awful.
that reminds me of something my grandma showed me once, like an article from, like Red Book or Women's Magazine or something from I want to say late 50s, early 60s. And it was such a funny article because it's telling you how to prepare yourself for when your husband gets home from work.
Mm.
And like, you're supposed to
Yeah.
put on a clean dress because probably doing chores all day made your dress dirty. So put on a clean dress, make sure your makeup's done. Pinch your cheeks so they're nice and rosy so that he thinks you're happy. Make sure that the kids are settled and quiet. And it's so funny because that was just like, that was normal. That was just normal advice to normal women. Not
The
even
50s,
just
right?
Yeah.
That was in the singer sewing machine manual. I saw this, somebody had shared it on Facebook a few years ago, and I was just dying because it was like, oh, make sure everything's perfect. And when when you get done with your sewing, it was like, even wear lipstick while you're sewing so that you feel good, good about what you're sewing, right? And then before your husband gets home, you make sure you put all your sewing stuff away and you put a ribbon in your hair. Like,
Wow.
I can't imagine having a ribbon. I don't think I've ever had a ribbon in my hair. I'm gonna do it just for a joke.
when my husband gets home, I have sweatpants on or yoga pants, or I've probably been sitting on a couch half the day with the dogs. You may or may not get dinner tonight. I'm not really sure. I'm really glad he can cook for himself.
Exactly. I know. When Duncan comes in from chopping wood, he doesn't exactly smell like a rose or have a perfect,
Yeah, why
outfit
do
on.
I have to smell good when my sweaty soldier's coming home from, we're in
Right.
Death Valley right now, so 104-degree heat. Like,
Oh, oh my
I'm
God.
not going to take care of myself.
No. Okay. Kayla B. Marilyn, your story is so amazing and inspiring. I'm so glad to have sort of met you through this. Glad to have met you too. I think
Yeah.
we all have a story. We're all able to just support each other. I just love this community.
Mhm.
We're all survivors of
Yeah.
something, right? We all have, so far we have 100% survival rate.
Yeah.
Renee B, has anyone watched How to Become a Cult Leader on Netflix? Not
Mhm.
yet. I think it came out about 5 days ago or so.
Yeah, last week or
Definitely, it's
something.
on my
Mhm.
list. Yep.
Yep.
It's definitely on my list.
I think I have one episode. I think I have one episode left.
Oh.
But it's interesting, and I really like Peter Dinklage narrating it. His voice is so great. But it's put forth in a way that everyone can understand. This is what makes a cult leader. So it's pretty definitive, and it's all of the things that we talk about when we're talking about, David Miscavige, L. Ron, Keith Raniere. It's laying it all out there for you so that you can clearly understand, okay, yes, this is what a cult is. I get it now,
That's great because the education needs to be out there. And
Absolutely.
they did one on how to become a dictator, and that was excellent. I really liked that. So I was like, oh,
Mhm.
this is probably gonna be really good. And what's funny is I've been doing these little cult leader toolbox videos, and it'll be interesting to see if I haven't really I've mostly been just doing it from my own experience and from watching all these documentaries and doing my own research. So it'll be interesting to see if how on target I've been or off target I've been. So
Mhm.
it'd be interesting to watch. It's definitely on my list. Terry Ray, my mom never talked to me about anything. She always told me to find the answer in the Bible. Yep. And the Bible doesn't talk about a lot of stuff. And if you're coming of age and you're a woman, The only reference I can think of is, I'm sorry, is in the Old Testament, if it was your time of the month, you had to go out of the camp into a tent far, far away for a week
Wow.
and be banished. So that's a lot of days out of the month. That's really,
Jeez.
really
And there
bad.
are still
So that's what the Bible says about that.
there are still people, there are still groups, cultures that do that, that think that women time of the month is unclean, unholy, and that women have to go off and live by themselves. There's still cultures that do that.
Jeez.
It's we've been shamed for our womanly bodies for so long. I feel like we're just starting to turn that corner, now, where I grew up not being told, but being very uncomfortable talking about any of that kind of stuff. And my daughter, she's got no problems with it because she's like, this is my body. This is what my body does. I can talk about it,
Yeah.
Terry Ray. Maybe others who grew up with fundy parents will understand, but since it was drilled into me that God chose our one partner, I was terrified I would miss him when he came to me. Absolutely. Yeah. That was definitely even taught in my mainstream church, that God had one person for you. There was only one person out there. And so again, like if you are out of God's will, you might miss out. And you'd end up being an old maid, or you'd marry the wrong person. Yeah. And another layer on top of that was in the cult I was in, it was the cult leader that said God would show her and that she would show the man, but not the woman. So yeah, I guess I was the last to know.
Well, you got a good one, so
I got a good one. So yeah, I must have done something right. I don't know. Yeah. Joel McQueen. Hey, Joel. For me, the only thing you should be in control of is your car. People are not to be controlled. Yes. Control your car. Oh, speak of the devil, Duncan Honig. He's like, yep. Big emphasis on self-annihilation of any ambitions, plans, desires, etc. The cognitive dissonance was incredible, and I found myself resenting the people we were helping to live, quote, normal lives. Right. That's actually a really good point. I wonder if people in the Sea Org feel that way sometimes as well, because having to serve the public Scientologists, we were basically, we were celibate. We were, I really did want to have children. We were serving the parishioners all the time. We'd have to cook the meals. There would always be a big meal on Sunday. I was washing baseboards with this really high concentration of ammonia water. I was cleaning toilets. I was, keeping we were all doing that. Duncan was constantly, doing maintenance for no money, just always just working constantly. We were being deprived of food and sleep and everything. And yeah, it just made you resentful because you were like, okay, I'm basically sacrificing everything. And these people are just eating, eating all the food and having kids and having a great old time while we're, quote, serving God. And yeah, we couldn't have normal lives. It was crazy. And that self-annihilation of any ambitions and plans. I mean, he was this guy in his early and mid and late 30s being in there all that time. And not to speak for Dunk, but I know he's expressed this many times. He's this, muscular, virile type guy. He was just frustrated in, a lot of different ways, but still just not being able to be himself. It was just so frustrating for all of us. All right. All right. I'll just this was the next one. I guess he had a whole sermon planned, and this was the other half. God loved us, but we were supposed to sacrifice ourselves, die to everything while everyone else could do what they wanted. We got a raw deal. Yeah. The cult leader always somehow gets to do whatever they want, right? Anybody else want to read some of these? Because I'm getting a little bit hoarse.
Sure, I'll go. Okay. My mom left a parish that was very fear-based and turned the first communion into a child mass wedding kind of situation without the music. Creepy as hell. Oh my goodness. Wow.
I gotta read that again. Wow. Turn the community. Wow. It sounds almost like is it Hare Krishna that did? No. What's the one?
That's the Moonies
Moonies. Yeah,
who
that's it.
have the
Moonies.
mass weddings.
I always mix them up for some reason. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Wow. It's insane.
But they're marrying children off
Child mass wedding. Oh my god.
instead of first communion.
Wow.
Oh.
Mm.
Well, I hope that they were shut down and reported, and
I know.
really, I'm not sure where she lives. Maybe I don't want to speculate, but it might be Germany. I can't remember where she said she lived. Joe McCoyne. You want to read
We
one?
all, oh sure. I'll go. We all should have control over our own lives, thought, actions, happiness, unhappiness is up to us as individuals. When being yourself is bad, that's wrong. Yeah. Oh yeah.
It should be so, obvious, but
Yeah.
it's
It's not.
It's not.
Yeah.
And we were talking about going into these things as a kid, and I think Marilyn, you were a teenager, right? And still obviously underdeveloped brain, and I would assume, and I think I've heard you say before, because of your family situation, this was like a community for you to be a part of, right?
Yeah.
n-
Yeah.
People are searching for these
Yeah.
things, and
Yeah.
most
It's
of the
very-
time they're searching
Yeah.
for that community feeling.
Mhm. It's a very delicate time in your late teens to early 20s because you're no longer under your parents, control or, influence as much. That's why so many cults go into college campuses
Yeah,
to recruit
absolutely.
because they don't have their parents kind of, watching over them as much anymore. And they haven't, their brains aren't completely developed, right? And also, they're looking for a purpose in life. They're looking for a career. That's kind of what I was looking for, was that I had kind of sowed my oats for a while. And then I had the fear of going to hell coupled with how am I going to make it? How am I going to support myself? And what am I going to do with my life? So it was like, wow, if you come here, you won't go to hell. We'll give you a roof over your head and we'll give you a purpose in life. It's like, okay, there we go. Insane.
I mean, you're going to be cleaning for 16 hours out of the day.
Oh, yeah. They don't tell you that. They don't tell you any of that. No.
You want me to read one, Marilyn?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go for it,
Okay.
Chad.
Lady BB says, how is it even okay to ask a child to go to confession in a Catholic church? What could an 8-year-old have to confess? I had to come up with something like, I had a bad thought or something so stupid.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah, it's true.
My first confession was when I was, so I got confirmed when I was in junior year of high school, and that was my first time confessing. And we didn't do it in the, like in the movies where you see the little private thing and you go in and the priest doesn't see you or whatever. We were just face to face with our priest right there. He just took us aside during class one night. But I was like, 16, I think. And I was like, I lie a lot, I'm like, not going to say I have a lot of premarital sex. I'm, a little promiscuous. I'm not going to be like that in front of my priest. So I'm like, I know I lie a lot. And he just stared at me like, okay, I think that, I don't know. I mean, does he want the juicy stuff? Cause I could go there, but is it going to get back to my mom?
Right. Yeah. It's just that teaching someone at a young age that you're bad and you can't trust yourself and that you have to look to someone else to tell you you're okay, to tell you you're forgiven, to tell you, pat you on the head. It's just, it's not good.
Go say some prayers and you're okay.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. rocking it out with Kim D. High. We didn't learn how babies are made, and I believe that she's a former Mormon, so in the
Oh,
Mormon
okay.
church too. Yep,
hmm
keep you in the dark. It's too bad. Chad, you want to read another one?
Yeah, yeah. From Sophia, no close contact to each other to time to produce children with a person you just kissed is just crazy.
No close contact to each other. Yeah. Yeah. No contact
Yeah,
to, okay. Be
right. Yeah,
fruitful and multiply.
all or nothing.
Yeah. See, speaking of the devil, no. Duncan, don't do it. It's wrong. Don't think about it. Okay, you're married. Now it's all okay. Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that was
Another reason
awful.
why some families have so many babies. Or, you don't understand that you can actually get pregnant right away after you give birth to a baby. Your next. I mean, you can ovulate pretty quickly afterwards. So,
Yep.
why do they have so many babies so close together? Well, they probably didn't realize.
I had a really hard time watching my younger sister, my adopted sister. She loved the Duggar thing, and she homeschools still, and she loved the Duggars. And I always knew it was creepy because I had escaped the cult, and she agreed that I was in a cult, but she wasn't. Whatever. But she wasn't. I mean, a little less so than I was, right? But she would love it. And so I was like, okay, I'll check it out. Well, the first episode I watched was the one about Josie. Was she the 20th baby? So this was towards the end when
the 20th baby passed away.
Okay, so the 19th was Josie.
I don't know her name.
Yeah, they're all the same. All right. The blonde, the little curly blonde that she had, but she had so many problems with her that having her, and then she was in, I think, ICU or something. And I was just sick to my stomach watching the fact that this woman, was she in her 40s, having all these kids, and it was like someone asked her, the producer or something asked her, "Is this it?" She's like, "It's up to the Lord," or she said something like, I was like, "Are you kidding me, woman? You're not going to survive." She somehow did, but just awful. Doesn't make, again, the good Lord gave you a brain. Why don't you use it once in a while?
He also gave us birth control.
Exactly. I think, yeah. Hannah Reynolds getting pregnant off loose seats.
Oh, the loose seats, the toilet seats.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, this time of day you get a lot of UK and European people. So, right, off the toilet seats with a common misconception. I've heard that. Yep.
I have
no
too.
Pun intended. Misconception. No pun intended. The 70s and 80s. Yep. Yeah, and falling on a cornstalk.
Wow, I never heard the cornstalk one. That's funny.
Yeah. You want to take that one, Peggy?
Juliana says to Lady BB, I vividly remember how I was worried during my first confession that I would go to hell if I forgot to confess something. Then I remember I'd given the rest of my food to the dog.
Oh, thank goodness she had something to confess.
You made up for it because you did a good deed. So
yeah.
That is interesting. I wonder how many people feel like they have to say every single thing that they did wrong. Because, I mean, think of how many things we do wrong in a day. I couldn't even, if I started keeping a diary and just going into the priest and like, shh, paper,
Right. Yeah. It's like, and it won't count if you say like 10 things you did wrong, but there's an 11th thing that could send you to wherever Catholics go, purgatory or wherever.
Yeah. It's right in their writing responsibility. I realize I will answer to God for every single thought, word, or action.
Yeah.
That's pretty
I used to think God had a tape recorder, that would record all your thoughts. And I'm like, that's why I just said I gave up after a while. I'm like, I'm done.
Yeah.
In my defense, I was 11.
Yeah. Aw.
She could just pop things up. That's awesome. Thanks, Julie.
Yeah.
Julie's in the background helping us out with all of this. Thank you so much, Julie. And thank you to our moderators, too. I don't want to forget forget to thank
Absolutely.
everyone.
Terry, yep.
Yeah. Relax, llama drama, Team Mike. Um, Control is definitely best exercised through fear, and lack of knowledge enhances that fear. Good point. The less you know, the more you will seek the leader and his or her gospel.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. You don't trust yourself. When there's certain things that are said to you that are these like super deep um precepts or revelations that God has for you, but you don't know what they are. Well, how are you going to know what they are? If you can't trust your own judgment, you can't trust them. You go to your leader, and they'll gladly tell you what to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Julianne, thank you.
Yes, they're very
Marilyn,
cute. Yes.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Jeff, it is interesting. I'm probably a generation before you guys in the way we got to. Don't be so sure. I'm pretty old. I'm probably a generation before you guys, and the way we got to go out before we were allowed to date was 16. We would all get together and go out as a group, usually 6 or more.
Hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, like in the 50s and 60s. And in a way that's probably sort of normal at first, is like when you meet somebody, it's not like this you're going to marry that person. Like if you sit on a park bench and hold hands up, you're going to marry him. No. I mean, I kind of taught my kids because of what I went through. Even before I ran away at 16, I wasn't allowed to date or anything. And wouldn't it be normal to just like go out as a group and meet somebody? How are you going to meet somebody to know that you like them? You're not going to, well, now we've got Tinder or whatever, but just to be friends if you're friends with someone. And that's one thing that I was fortunate to be able to know Duncan. I mean, we knew each other really well by the time we got married. And even then, personality wise, right? But even then, we weren't allowed to be totally ourselves. So there were a lot of things that we kind of had to work out. Even after we left the cult, it was like, oh, you think that way? Oh, well, me too. And we had to almost like, I know that Mark and Claire said this even the other day. She said we kind of had 2 marriages. It was like in the cult and out of the cult. And that's kind of how it was with us too. It was like, do I really like this person? Was this an arranged marriage? And I was like, you know what? I do really like him. Okay, good. Phew, because we got 3 kids together.
That's funny.
Oh, One with Cat says, Army brat here. Totally know how it was to grow up like that, and it was hard. Yeah, I'm so proud of my kids for coming out of it on the other end. So my daughter is 25 and she graduated from college. She lives, in LA. She's unfortunately right now she's in the entertainment industry. And so she's not working right now because no one is working right now. But she's just such a great woman, and she's found an absolutely amazing partner. Who she wouldn't have found if she wasn't an Army brat, because that was due to one of our moves. But my middle child, he is in the Army right now. He's a combat medic in the 82nd Airborne. And I mean, he himself has found an absolutely incredible partner. His fiance is beautiful, gorgeous, who he wouldn't have met if he wasn't military, So, and then my youngest is off to college next week, and I'm not okay with this at all. So I'm not going to talk about it because I'll start crying.
Aww.
But another downside of being military family is your kids grow up and move away because we don't have a home for them to come to. But yeah, I have such respect for my kids. They've handled it well. They've got issues, they've got some trust issues, and they've got some, they get antsy. If they live at one place too long, they start to get antsy, but it's overall, I'm just so proud of them. They did a great job.
Well, you've done a great job too.
Yeah.
Good on you, Mama. Good job. Okay. Joel McCoy. Marlene was only chosen by herself, right? She thinks God chose her, but yeah, That's,
Wow.
that's another whole story for someday of the progression of how she thought that
Mm.
because she had another failed ministry that supposedly her husband was called to lead, but he cheated on her and became an alcoholic. So it was up to her to start another ministry by herself.
Let me guess. She probably
Yeah.
thought no one else was capable of doing it.
You're right. It's right. Exactly. Yeah, because God couldn't. It was always, God saying it through her. Yeah,
Yep.
whatever. Peggy, so true. Oh, specialized therapy is needed. That I think he's talking about.
Mhm,
You're saying about becoming a social worker.
mhm, mhm. Yep, and
That's
I
true.
can't guarantee I don't think I wanna be a one-on-one therapist. That doesn't really interest me too much, but I do want to, at least be able to influence other people and, just take care of people, like we talked about, like, as a whole, I just wanna take care of people.
That's great.
That's awesome. That's just mm, um, deconstruction. Oh, that's a good way to put it. Of leaving the Mormons and like deprogramming.
Like
Mhm.
3 years.
Deconstruct takes time. I'm 3 years out. Yeah, it does take time. It took a long time for me. Probably, there's layers, like the onion thing, right? It took a year or two for me to even feel human again. I won't say normal because I'm still not normal, but probably a good 10 years before I was able to even, well, when I started watching the aftermath and really to delve into the nitty gritty of what I really believed and what really happened. So
Wow.
it's hard to admit to myself.
Mhm.
So these people coming right out telling their stories, I give them a lot of credit. I really do.
Yep.
Really do. Jeff, I always have a weariness of anyone that takes any religious writing verbatim to the word. Yeah. To
Yep.
me, any religious writing is to help make people better persons and positive contributors of society. Right. Things change. Yeah, Duncan said, it's people that they only read the Bible. They only want to follow the Bible. It's like so no one in 2000 years has had a good something to say, like
Mhm.
a
Something to
worthwhile
add to
thought.
it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
But
it's just that's one of the things with the Bible, though, being written so long ago and being written for that time and place.
mhm,
There's just so much you can't take literally anymore.
right. And there is a scripture saying that don't add or subtract to the word of God. So again, if you take it literally, that's what you get.
Mm.
Is just people going way off the deep end. Oh, Liz put it in a short, and Aaron is going live shortly. Okay, that was about a half hour ago, so he might be live now. We'll see. We'll have to get the replay.
Mm. Yeah.
Sophia, God will provide is a good source of for anxiety. Yeah, yeah. There was this big thrust in our um, cult to look at language in the Bible, like different, like Hebrew and Greek lexicons, and there's different words for God, and there's one that is Jehovah Jireh, which is Jehovah is God, Jireh what meant my provider, and there's the scripture that says, "My God shall provide all my needs according to his riches and glory. He will give his angels charge over me, and he will direct my path." So, if you break that down, right, it's like, okay, God will provide all your needs. I guess you could send people with food and stuff for you, but I mean, all the Bible also says that who does not work does not eat.
Mhm,
So,
Mm.
mhm.
go get your ass to work, and then you'll be able to eat. Is all I have to say about that, right? People are back from Aaron. Okay, hi everybody. I gotta watch the replay.
Yeah.
um, all right, Terry. Hey Hey, Terry. There isn't any documentation. Mom was adopted and they have her adopted family. It's automatically like, oh, I think this was about the Mormon genealogy. I think it
Mhm.
was a conversation that was going, so I didn't read them all. Liked in my tree and won't let me change her parents to how to her bio.
Oh.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. I yeah, I have my I don't have my original birth certificate. I think I did have it, but I was thinking about that is how my biological cousin was looking me up and she couldn't find me because of my birth my birth certificate wasn't my original. So that's tough.
Oh, does yours still have your birth parents on it though?
Please. No. Um you can actually add them. So I guess if it's not accurate, I don't know how you do that, but my cousin went into Ancestry and added me under my parents because my mother was her aunt. So she added me and yeah, and my father as well. So
Huh.
I yeah, and it was weird because my biological father wasn't even on my original birth certificate. So that's why I was just kind of couch hopping for 4 years after the fire.
Aw.
Really weird. I'm not the only one. I mean, just when I think I have problems, it's like you watch the documentary like Serge Belinsky,
Oh,
you're
I
like,
know.
oh
I
Yeah.
my God.
know. That was
He's
incredible.
it was just amazing.
I
Amazing.
know. I was actually driving around in LA yesterday thinking about him.
Yeah, wow. Wow. Did you drive by any of I mean LA's big, but
Well, I didn't only because once we got to LA, my car started acting a little funky, but
mm,
I was planning on taking a trip downtown and actually my daughter used to live right near where they were filming him whatever they got on the YouTube videos, of him when he was homeless. My daughter lived right around there, her first apartment.
oh, wow.
Oh.
Really? Your daughter still lives in LA?
She does, yeah. Hmm.
Mhm. Hey, Sophia, my grandma told me at eight how not to set off her husband because he can't handle strong women. I was like, yeah. It ended my last respect for him, and I just looked at her. Not gonna effing happen. Yep. Yep. Strong women are good thing, right?
Very
Right,
good
Chad?
thing.
Right,
That's
Chad?
right. That's right. You're right, Marilyn. That's right, Marilyn.
We have
Whatever you
this thing
say,
we go
Marilyn.
back and forth.
Yep.
You watch we call them the onion people, Janice and Mark. Mark will be like, "Isn't that right, Janice?" She'll be like, "That's right, Mark."
It works out good because I say it whenever I'm done with saying something, you have to like throw it over to someone. So
Right?
it's a
Yeah.
good
Back to
line.
you. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Peggy, you want to take this one?
Jeff says, take into account that the patriarchal society started to evolve in the 19th and 20th century. Patriarchy was the world societal model, and to change that is not going to be instant. Oh, for sure. It, we're in a generation right now where we want instant changes, but um, so I was born in 78. So I don't think I've seen really big changes. But if I think back to my grandma and the changes since then,
Oh yeah.
that
Mhm.
it's huge. It's just that things go quickly and then they go slow and then they go quickly, and so I think we're just it's hard to look back at the timeline and go, we have come a really long way. But then you look, especially right now, when we've got the Supreme Court overturning things that shouldn't be overturned. And now we all feel like we've stepped back,
Yeah.
we can't see still, we have still come a long way, it's just hard. It's hard when we want things now.
Right. Yeah, I remember something that um Mike Render always said about um the changes that seem to be not taking place in the whole Scientology thing. Is like, you're crying for justice. You're crying, you're just like, are you kidding me? Still in the same day and age as people that are locked in holes and all the abuses that are going on. And he always would liken it to the civil rights movement, how it wasn't overnight. It did take a long time for it to become commonplace that this wasn't okay. So that's a good way to look at it, even though I just get so frustrated. I mean, after even watching that documentary with Serge, I was like, oh my God. And even the thing with Liz Ferris and her father. I'm going to put this up there.
Nice.
And Liz has a GoFundMe going to help with expenses to, there's legal expenses, there's gas, there's all kinds of things that are taking resources to try to get him out, get to him. And not just for him, she's doing it to hopefully the floodgates will open and people will get out, it's just so frustrating. It's not gonna happen overnight, but even little things like doing this, keeping the conversation going, all the different channels that are popping up. I mean, eventually the tide will turn.
Yep, absolutely.
Yep.
Joel McCoy. I love all his comments are great. All cult leaders have one thing in common: they're narcissists, buttheads. Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
Couldn't stand it better myself. Don Lambert. Hey, Don. My mom kept me home from school to talk to me about my body and sex. Well, that's good.
Wow.
Because a lot of people don't. I think she was in Scientology. So.
Oh, okay.
That's good. Yep. That's good.
Yeah.
Jeff, we have to get many generations of those teaching of patriarchy behind us until it is not an influence to future generations. Yep.
Yep. My son and I were just talking about this the other day too. My youngest, he's a historian. He loves reading and researching history. But that's something that we've talked about, that it's going to take generations, several of them, before we see that significant change. So it's definitely not going to be in our lifetime, but that's why we keep raising the kids that we're raising, so that we're trying to break those chains.
Yeah, definitely breaking the cycle, right? Of all kinds of things that weren't right, that we were. I think our generation was just. I'm older than you, both of you, but just starting to get to the point where we were talking about these things. Like child SA was a hush hush thing. And now it's not so much, and it needs to even be more so something that is talked about and exposed to save these children from horrible fate. Sophia, they're not even supposed to come in touch with sunlight in some cultures. Oh, right. If the women, man, why do we have such a bum deal?
I know.
Because Eve shouldn't have given the man the apple, Adam the apple. Man, I'd like to have a talk with her. Hey, Joe. Joe, question for you both, since you know the Bible pretty well. What's the deal with wailing and gnashing of teeth? Okay, so I feel like I got to say it like Elron Hubbard. Like, and you will burn in the depths of hell forever and ever. Will there be weeping and gnashing of teeth? It's a description of hell. Not that Elron believed in hell, but his voice just seemed to fit this situation. That was a description of hell, where all of the idolaters. So if you had an idol in your life, could be your kids, could be anything. If you lied, if you stole, if you did anything, if you were gay, if you were, I'm trying to think of all the other sins, that you would be thrown in the lake of fire. Will there be weeping or wailing and gnashing of teeth? So gnashing of teeth is just like suffering forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever is what we were taught. So I used to imagine that. So you see, I jumped on that question because that was like one of the things that was I couldn't even really think or talk about after leaving the cult because it was just something that was just always a fear. But now it's like, yep, that's what we were taught. Yep. And it was a real fear, especially when you're a kid, you know? It's awful. And not to give it away, but you were Peggy, you were talking about the hell houses that I think I really do want to do a stream on some, maybe near Halloween, probably be a good time. But yeah, just the fear based.
Mm-hmm.
Awful. You want to take that one, Peggy?
My aunt lost it because I put my dad into the horrible position to have to buy my period stuff. He taught me it's a normal thing and hated the shame around it. Even knew I was regular before me. Yeah, when your dad has to take control of that.
Yeah.
I mean, good for him. And that's another thing is getting men comfortable to talk about that. You know, that's not normal either. You know,
Right. Yeah. Nuts. I'm gonna read some of these ahead of time. All right. I don't want to get into a whole thing about that. We already read one of them. So, okay. Tori, Aaron is calling Leah and we'll probably update later. At least we know why the Leah Mike podcast stopped. Oh.
Yeah, we'll have to watch that.
There was one point in the podcast where it was like a Q&A and somebody asked, you know, what they're working on. And Leah said that there was a bunch of stuff going on that they weren't allowed to talk about. There was legal stuff going on.
Yeah.
So I'm sure having to stop talking about it every single week was, you know, part of that.
Right. Well, let's wrap it up. Oh, we got a super chat.
Yeah. Chad, read that one.
Yeah,
all right.
you.
Rooks, Chad would make a terrible cult leader. He's too kind. Thank you very much.
Well, I hate to break it to you, but there is a cult of Chad. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's a nice, happy cult. We love Chad. We love Chad.
Thanks.
Oh, my super chats are aren't going through. Oh.
Well,
if you're on Chad's channel, you should be able to.
Well, we can put her question up if she wants.
Yeah, if you have a question, put it up
real quick. Yeah. Especially if you tried to super chat. Yeah.
Yeah, let me see if. Oh, there's some more. I'm looking. I see her name, but I don't see the question.
I didn't see it unless she did it a long time ago. I was trying to keep track. I didn't see anything.
Okay. Oh, it wasn't a question. Just welcoming Peggy. Yet.
That's great.
Saying hi.
Thank you.
If you're on my channel, I'm not monetized yet, but yeah, you can always put comment too, and we'll definitely pick it up. Thank you. Yeah, Peggy, you've been great. I mean, we got to do this again.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure.
This is your
a wide variety of useless knowledge.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun.
Oh, it's been awesome. Yep. We have a couple of.
Anytime I get to use my typewriter, guys, I really love to do that. So, you know.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Oh yeah, Peggy's channel. Are we plugging your channel?
No, not yet.
Oh, we don't want to plug it yet?
Peggy has her hand in many things right now.
Okay.
So I need to concentrate on the researching for TSFU, and school starts in 2 weeks. Starts back in 2 weeks. So,
well, I didn't have any content on my channel when they plugged it, and I was like, oh, I got all these subscribers, but I didn't have any content. So I already subscribed to you. I already subscribed to you. So
you had like 300 subscribers before you even, like, I think in like one day.
Yeah, that was an amazing little time.
Yeah, I was blown away, and I was like, well, I better put something up. Yeah. Purple Groovy. Hey, Purple Groovy. Anyone who thinks sitting in church can make you a Christian must also think sitting in a garage can make you a car. Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Tori, idea, mini Chad and Aaron's life-size plush doll in a fig? Is that, am I reading that right? I meant, oh, Aaron's life-size boss baby doll. Size boss. Oh, his little elf, I want to say Elsa on a shelf. Was the Keebler elf?
Yep.
Hey, thank you. You guys are all awesome. This was really fun. I feel like we could just hang out all day, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to do it again. There's a lot of great comments and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can't believe
Absolutely.
this was your first live stream. Is this your first, Peggie?
Yeah.
You did amazing.
Anytime you got something for me to talk about, I can talk.
Oh, I always got something to talk about. Funny, my adopted dad used to say, "Girl, you could talk the hind and off a mule." I think he got that from a movie, but I think it's from Anna Green Gables. But yeah, and I didn't talk for many years in the cult. So now I'm just like, blah. Yeah. Thank you for
Oh.
doing this at a UK friendly time.
Yeah, Marilyn
Yes, you
even
are.
specifically said something about that to me. She said, "I like to do it around 1 because then we get our UK friends."
Yeah,
That's a good
I
point.
love the UK people. Well, we do the late night stream on Monday nights, the after party, and it's like 2, 3 in the morning for the UK people and the European people. So I thought it'd be good to do these earlier in the day. And also there's a block between about, say 2 or 3 Eastern to about 9 Eastern that you get, Aaron and a lot of we call them the OGs that come on. And I'm a firm believer in being like a support person to them. Like this is their network. They're the survivors of Scientology. SPTV is really about their stories and us supporting them and being even though they've been just so supportive of us. Just the other day, like Mark Adley popped into my stream. I was like, oh my God, and I get like Kelly Copter and the Degraded Daughters, and I just fangirl like crazy. I'm like, what? Really?
And
So I try to be
even
mindful.
Aaron. Yep.
Aaron,
Yeah, when Aaron popped in one night, you guys were like,
Yeah,
did.
that was
I
crazy.
know. That was
He was in there
awesome.
for like an hour.
Yeah. All right, everyone. We'll wrap it up for today, but we'll be back really soon, and hopefully, Peggy, you can
Yeah,
join us again
absolutely.
soon.
Anytime.
Yeah.
And then
Good
tonight,
luck with
I'm
everything you have going on.
moderating for Deversivo Xenu Nation. So I
Okay.
will see some of you guys tonight
Yes.
because
Oh, okay.
I recognize a lot of these names. So
Oh yes. So
some of you guys
Denver
I'll see
Stevo-
tonight.
So Denver Stevo is on. I don't know what time, but you can
What time?
check his
9:30
channel.
Clearwater time.
Oh, okay.
Clearwater
So
time.
that's
Okay.
good because it'll
So
give us some
Eastern.
time for Poe on the go at 8:00 Clearwater time, so we could jump from that to Denver Stevo.
All right.
Yep.
All right, everybody. Have a great
Thank
day.
you
Thank
so
you so
much,
much for
guys.
joining us. All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.